This is the fourth and last video clip in the video manual of voice map method software. So far we have started the program, we have set up the areas, and we have made the actual analysis. And the fourth part of using the software, before going to the list of good questions, will be reading the analysis, reading the voice map. And for that, I have created a theoretical voice map with two areas, the blue one and the orange one. And I've created this voice with only two areas to make things a little bit more simple for us, but I think it has many of the things that are important and noteworthy for the analysis. So let's start with the blue one. You might notice that I'm using actual actual screenshot of the analysis and not the software itself, because the software itself would say, all the time inform me what each pitch is, but this screenshot can be used as well. And as you remember, always after doing each area and after finishing, especially after finishing the whole analysis, always take a screenshot for later use. So I'm doing this with screenshot because of that. And here we can see that the deepest tone, the lowest tone is C sharp 3 to be precise. Here we have A3, so this is C sharp. And the highest tone of that blue area is D sharp 4. So this blue area is a little bit wider than 1 octave. And it has quite a dramatic leap, so to say. But let's start with the minimum values of the dynamic. And as we can see, they are all rather soft. They are all more or less in the same area. And this is kind of the minimum that the voice map software can analyze in this situation. So I would say that with the blue area for these tones, actually the whole blue area, except maybe those 3 or 4 lowest notes, there is no actual practical minimum value. You can compose for this voice as soft as you want. Unless you're using something very complicated, microphones, and you're playing with very, very soft dynamics, I wouldn't worry about these soft dynamics. They will not be too loud. The exception might be these 4 lowest tones here. This is a theoretical case, so I haven't listened to this voice. But since these 4 tones seem a little bit iffy with the soft dynamics and also a little bit weird in the loud dynamics, I would expect these to be a little bit more difficult notes. So it's possible that everything until here, which would be E, F3 or something like that, is okay from above, but below that it gets really difficult and maybe the tones aren't very reliable in the end. Whereas for the loud dynamics, the maximum value is skyrocketing. It's very high very quickly. And here we can see that there is until here with this G3, the dynamics, the maximum dynamics are rather soft. So these are probably only things that the singer can produce in a good day. They are there, but they might not have a lot of striking values, so to say. Whereas after A3, the maximum dynamic gets quite loud, and it seems that these are kind of tones that could be used in musical context too, and would have possibly also an interesting timbre that we don't know, but it seems that they are at least very reliable. They have a lot of dynamic options. We can have a look at the singer's formant, and here it seems that the singer's formant is rather soft. There isn't much, so probably these actually are soft tones and they do not have any special striking or penetrating quality, so it's quite possible that these tones wouldn't be heard, especially here until A3, wouldn't be heard really well through a larger orchestra or that kind of instrumentation, which is also quite typical for most, let's say, female voices, because this is already getting quite low for them. Then we can proceed to the orange area, and here the minimum value seems really interesting. There might have been some little bounces, little accidents in the analysis situation, because clearly this dynamic doesn't seem to make sense. It's probably that the line actually goes like this, but these little jumps, they don't confuse our analysis. We know that it's probably the line is rather clean, and this just means that the tones might have been a little bit more difficult to analyze, and that's it. So here I'm seeing quite clearly that from the middle, it's already quite a bit louder, and the minimum value is already quite a bit louder than with the blue area, and as we go higher and higher, the minimum value gets also a lot higher. So it means that these tones, which go all the way to C#5, simply aren't, the person can't produce them very softly with this area. This jump in dynamic seems a little bit weird, so I would listen really carefully why the dynamic minimum changes so much here between. Also, the question is that because there are so many overlapping tones, all these tones can be sung in two different areas, the orange one and blue one. I would ask myself first, are these two areas really two different areas? But because the dynamic minimum is so different here, and also the dynamic maximum values are so different here, I would accept that they really are two different areas. Clearly, there is a difference here. And when we go to the maximum values, also here, the maximum values seem to rise quite logically. So the higher the tone, the louder the maximum dynamic is. And here, interestingly, the very lowest part of this orange area is actually quite soft. So if you would work with this so-called passaggio area, which belongs to both of these areas, I would be really careful with the dynamics firstly, but probably there could be some interesting things that you could do with the natural timbre of the voice. So for example, if you go from below to these tones, you probably have this certain kind of like, it feels like it has more energy, but it's also more loud. Whereas if you come from above, they have the same energy, but if you then go lower and lower and lower, you start to get these same tones, but kind of like they have a different lightness to them. And these are the things I would recommend that you also listen to really carefully during the analysis session. And here we can see that the singer's formant is already quite striking in the orange area. So already A4 has a quite striking singer's formant. So it's both loud, but it also has most probably this strong penetrative quality and will be heard through an orchestra. Remember that VoiceMap software and VoiceMap itself is only a starting point, an enhancement for communication. So from now on, I hope that you, the composer, and you, the singer, can continue with the communication using these results as your starting point.